Nation's number one radio station, 99.3 Nigeria Info. Lagos, good morning to you, and thank you for joining us. 7:31 is the time from our studios here. Welcome to Dailies Today, the second part. The first part was brought to you by Kofi Bartels, of course. I'm Sheriff Quadri.
I'm Jimmy Disso. Good morning.
Yes, sir. So you can watch us on Facebook and on YouTube. Nigeria Info 99.3 is how you can be a part of these on social media. Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3. Detail YouTube. Let's start with the Vanguard. PEPT, why Atiku Obi APM's petitions against Tinubu failed. Tribunal.
Yeah, yesterday, early in the morning, yesterday at your early program, you had people saying that, we're happy. They've told us we can now watch the proceedings and so on and so forth. I want somebody who can tell me categorically he was able to watch the proceedings from the beginning to the end. I think this thing lasted till about, when I went, I came back till about 8:30.
Over 2 hours. 12 hours.
12 hours. And I wonder why we couldn't have just been given an abridged version of the judgment. And then if you're so concerned, you go to the website of the Supreme Court and then read the full judgment. Well, at the end of the day, for me, there were no surprises. And I had said that as much. Because the truth is this, the law is couched in so many padlocks and unlocking padlocks and all kinds of things. Nothing is straightforward. For example, wouldn't it have been good if you just said in one sentence that anybody who, I'm joking, that's not the way it works, but anybody who to contest for the presidency, you should have exactly this. For example, the issue of Abuja. Couldn't the drafters of the law have been more specific? Do you understand what I'm saying? That I know that generally people always talk about, when they talk about the 36 states of the country, they always like to add and
the FCT.
And the FCT, just to differentiate the fact that the FCT is not a state. But whether that and now meant that you had to win 25% in specifically in Abuja, is subject to all kinds of interpretations. That's what it is. So a judge is at liberty to choose whichever interpretation suits him or her. And that's the way law goes. I don't want to go into the specifics of the case because in any case, I'm not a lawyer. Okay? Well, but what I would say essentially is a welcome to the new world. The new world that produced the likes of Trump has come to Nigeria. And just like the winner said, he said, you grab it. What was his first something? You grab it and run away with it. That is the new world. That is the new world order, unfortunately. It's not peculiar to Nigeria. I thought that Nigeria would have a better moral understanding of these issues. But if what it means is that you can circumvent and do all kinds of things and run away with it, so be it. We will have to live with that, either for the next 4 years or forever. Because if this is what we are getting now, in another 4 years, you can, it will just be. And like you said this morning, let me cheat a bit on what we spoke about. It's going to be very difficult for you to call out people for elections in Nigeria.
It's going to be difficult.
Very, very difficult. I'm not going to, in fact, I'll just take a vacation.
It's going to be difficult.
Very, very difficult. Okay, so the judgment highlights is that Obi Labour Party failed to prove rigging and overvoting by law. We saw what we saw, but the court says they failed to prove rigging and overvoting. That's what the law says, okay?
Yeah, sorry to butt in there, because when I read that, I was like, so what? All of those boxes of whatever it is that were brought into court, what were those things? I mean, like
according to
the law. Yeah.
And portions of Obi's petition vague, imprecise, nebulous, and bereft of particular materials. Okay, so they say Obi was validly nominated by LP. It is a token to have a little ice cream to lick whilst we're doing this. Shetima validly nominated as APC vice presidential candidate. This one I don't understand. No evidence Tinubu was convicted in the US for drug trafficking. Okay, so why don't we have a law that says that if you get involved in any way, because there was a seizure. Do you understand what I'm saying? There was a seizure. So why don't we have a law that is more generic But it says that he was not convicted. That's what the word convicted for drug trafficking. And they said that actually Tinubu not indicted, arraigned, tried, or convicted in the United States. But surely his money wouldn't have been taken if he wasn't involved. Somewhat. But that's today. So, and they said that the first $60,000 was a civil matter, not criminal conviction. INEC can't be forced to transmit election results electronically. You want to say something?
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And on 25% votes, Abuja not special than other states. And back to the drug issue, because I thought that was where the case could have a twist. Well, this is what they said. They said the PEPC also dismissed the allegation that President Tinubu was convicted in the U.S. on a drug trafficking related charge. The court, in its lead judgment in the joint petition filed by the Labour Party OB, held that evidence before it established that the first 60,000 naira fine that was imposed on Tinubu in the U.S. was in a civil matter. He held that such a fine did not translate to a criminal conviction that was capable of warranting Tinubu's disqualification from contesting the presidential election that was held on February 25. And in any case, this was the clincher. In any case, besides, the court held that a period of 10 years had elapsed since the said fine was imposed against Tinubu. I think there's a 10-year lapse. You have a 10-year grace. So that in a sense
that one
valid.
is rested. Yes, that case is rested.
So the
yeah.
10-year one is rested. Also, it says here that in the Vanguard that on the issue of INEC failing to transmit the results electronically real time on its results viewing portal, the tribunal said that the INEC was not mandated to send election results, but that's the rules that they set for themselves.
They set the guidelines.
They set the guidelines.
No one imposed the guidelines on INEC. INEC set the guidelines.
And so on and so forth. Well,
unless if this can be interpreted to mean that whatever INEC said as guidelines may not be followed on election day, even if INEC hasn't changed the guidelines.
Well,
so you can't essentially hold anybody accountable if a polling officer, for instance, in your ward decides to say this BVAS, so we are not going to use it.
Because
we are going to use this one before and they cannot penalize that person.
No, you can even say it after the election.
That
I changed my mind.
I change it. I change it. What is it? Court said it's not compulsory that this thing.
I think you make light out of it. What we have is a turning point for Nigeria, because what it means is that with very good manipulation tactics, no matter what it is, you can actually desire to lead this country. Nigeria would I don't know whether we are going to have any gains or pains. One of the pains that I have now is from a moral side, and people tend to throw that away. And for me, it's the most crucial. What example am I going to give? My children are grown. What example am I going to give my grandchildren now? Because we now have a culture where the things that matter no longer matter. And that is the sad part for me, which should have been nipped in the bud, if you ask me, at party level. And I don't know who's going to do that. I've always told you about politicians. Because we have a moral issue worldwide, and a lot of people brush it away, in their support. You have a leader who has questions to answer. And it is at the end of the day, it's a reflection of us as a people. You don't know the primary school, you don't know the secondary, you don't know there's this raging controversy about university. Everything is controversial. And yet emerges out of 220 million people as a leader. That, for me, is the bigger question. All these legalese. We all know, if you've ever been to court, you know that these things can go either way, depending on... Like my late friend Elias would say, not Taslim Elias, sorry, my late friend. Because, I've forgotten his first name, Taufik, Elias would say, you don't know the mind of the judge. But the PDP have said they are going to appeal. I think the Labour too indicated something like that. It is within their rights to do so. But I'm done. Okay, I'm done. I'm not going to put my eyes on this. Rather, let's see how we can manage what I would call this sad situation that we have on our hands. It's good that we have a president. I'm happy for Bola Tinubu and his camp. I'm happy for them. I'm hoping that they would surprise us all. Because you see, it's not just about money. The moral issue is more important in any group. And that's what I'm happy on. The moral issue and the capability. If you have a faulty moral issue, how do you determine the capability? You know? And there's so many things that you can't even say on radio that is worrying. But I hope that one day, 3 years from now, people can point at me and say, Jimmy, you are wrong. You see where we are. If that happens, I'll be so happy. But for now, I think I'm done. If they want to go to Supreme Court,
yes, they have said
rights.
Yes, they have said they're headed there. So yeah,
it's within their rights. Well, I'm done with this.
In fact, they were so much in a hurry yesterday that they wanted the judge to allow them have the copy of the judgment that yesterday night. The judge had to say, calm down. Since morning, 12 hours. You know the time.
But I still wish that I don't know whether to appeal to the appeal court or whatever. That couldn't the judges have just read an abridged version and you go to the website and spend your whole day reading this? We're denied a lot of other programs.
One of the SANs stood up yesterday to interrupt one of the.
I think I saw it. That was towards the end,
and he was actually saying that, look, if the other judges are going to agree with you, my lord, can they just say I agree? So she said, I agree. So she said, I agree.
They told him to sit down. I saw that part. I saw that part. It was such a boring night. It was such a boring, and it was on all the whatever. But Nigeria will always have to, just like every other person, you have to take responsibility for the choices you have made. And that leads us to...
They have their right to go to the Supreme Court. If they're headed there, good luck to them. Meantime, we've got a country to run, so we all have to move on. News from the pages of Inside Page, Metro Page of the Punch, as well as the Daily Trust.
Let me confess that I was playing naughty in letting the news come earlier because of that, the news that I see here. For you to know where we are headed when we talk about the moral issue. Listen to this. A 17-year-old boy, identified simply as Ayomiposi Eson, has allegedly stolen 3 mobile phones, 2 generator sets, a sound system, and a Toyota Corolla car belonging to his parents.
Oh, his parents?
Yes. Oh, the headline is that 17-year-old boy locks in parents, steals cars and others. The boy ran away with it. So you get the point. He grabbed it and he ran away with it. After locking his parents inside the house in Ogijo, Shagamu local government area of Ogun State. Punch Metro gathered that on September 23, the suspect was said to have broken into the house in the wee hours of the night, whilst Papa and Mama were asleep in the apartment. A source in the area who did not want to be mentioned because it was not, told our correspondent that it took a joint effort of other residents to free the parents from the apartment after their son fled to Meho, the scene with the stolen items. Welcome to a new Nigeria. 17 years. He grabbed it and ran away with it. That's the point. That's the point on this. Other stories there. Sokoto residents worried as IDP children beg for arms. Family demands justice over relatives' murder in Ondo. Woman seeks 20 million naira support for kidney transplant. Police to arraign new lecturer for alleged rape. Dr. Kadiri for alleged rape. That's a sad one. Government Partners Association on Chemical Control. Lagos begins sensitization on land use charge. So let's go to the
Daily Trust.
Daily Trust and see what we have. The new Nigeria that is emerging is very worrying. Husband rushes to Kano court as wife threatens to recircumcise him.
What does that mean?
A resident of Kano, Malam Ali, has rushed to a Sharia court seeking the court to stop his wife from her threat to renew his circumcision.
What?
He says that he told the court that his wife has been threatening him for long that she will renew his circumcision, adding that she even bought a sharp knife and kept it inside the house. Told me bye. You know, he said from that time he has been sleeping with one eye open whenever he's in her house, as he has 2 wives. That's a bit of fun here. You know, man slops dies during football training. That happens once.
It's unfortunate, yeah.
Okay, so that's where we are today in the news.
The Punch has this one, a page written by Uncle Jimmy's, one of Uncle Jimmy's favorite columnists, Abimbola Adelakun.
Why call her name? Why? How can she now?
Let me land. Let me just do the introduction. one of your favorite columnists, one of the people that you cherish so much in terms of their content on the pages of the paper. Abimbola Adelakun. And the title of the piece is PEPC, No Surprise Was Ever Coming.
Yeah, you know, Adelakun is one of the best writers I think we have. And there's another gentleman I've discovered now, Olufason. And where she talks about what happened yesterday. And she says that she said, first of all, starts by saying that anyone who has a sense enough of Nigerian history and politics would have known beforehand how Wednesday would unfold. And I was one of them. Going to the tribunal for Peter Obi of the Labour Party and Atiku was thus tricky. It was tricky right from the start. There is virtually no reasonable person who did not see the defectiveness of the elections. Nigerians saw it, foreign observers affirmed as such. Yet, going to court does not mean a receiver of stolen goods will be dispossessed of their loot. Presidential election petitions are adjudged not based on the integrity of their conduct, but on presumption that the declared winner will still have won despite the irregularities. Contesting an election in court, even when you are unsure of victory, does no more than officially register your discontent. That once you just register your discontent. If you do not formalize your grievance, the declared winner and their followers will take the acquiescence as proof of the legitimacy of the election. They would have publicly reasoned that if their opponents had any worthwhile evidence to the contrary, they would have challenged the result in the court. At the same time, by litigating, contenders risk looking like bitter losers. My attitude to these things is that if it does not matter either way, you might as well do it anyway. And so what she's arguing here is that it was a fait accompli. And she goes on to say here in some paragraphs down, this is because our politics no longer represent our political identities or aspirations. It has morphed into a monstrosity, feeding on our hopes, dreams, and collective potential, all the while acquiring a strength that makes it difficult to dislodge. That ordinary citizens saw judicial intervention as a means to end the present political arrangement suggests that they are yearning for, as far as democratic institutions go anyway, a force of power that can upturn the ongoing process order. I wonder if the judiciary, in writing Wednesday's judgment, apprehended the nature of the discontent, or was this all for them a technical procedure for interpreting the law? It's on the back page of the Punch, and I think it makes a lot of interesting reading. Which side of the divide that we have? By the way, I'd like some confirmation. For some reason, there was no judge from the Southeast.
I don't think so.
So if you're setting up a 5-man panel, whether Obi was a candidate or not, shouldn't the Southeast have had one representation in that 5-man panel? I mean, to be honest with you, how would we have felt, not you now, but generally, if we didn't have a judge from the Southwest there? I think it's something the appeal court needs to look into and should be avoided next time. For something like this, as important as this one, you should have had a judge from the Southeast on that, even if it's just for the ops. Even if it's just for the ops, and that puts a slight stain. It's a little dot, when you wear a white shirt and there's this little dot that just won't go away. It puts a slight stain on that. I hope the Supreme Court, if the case ever gets to them, will be mindful of that.
Right. Let's go pick up our next story. Ban illegal curfews by non-state actors. It's an editorial in the Punch.
Okay, so what they're talking about, what this editorial is talking about mainly is about those Oro and things like that, and they're asking questions as to what laws actually, what laws allow such things. We need to ask a question now. What exactly are the powers that our traditional rulers have? They talk about the Egungun, Eluku, all the ones that we had, and they said that this is a blatant illegality that should not be condoned in a society governed by the rule of law. They say that arbitrary curfews and restriction of movement of citizens are compounded by the ethnic dimension. It is inexplicable that over the years, here we go again, this is a sentence that's going to cause wahala, save for a respite during Fashola's administration that halted the impunity, the state government has been tolerating these violations. This is in the editorial, I didn't say that. This lends credence to allegations that politicians exploit the aberration for dubious advantage. And then they talk about the Lagos incident that happened during the governorship elections. They say that in July, Sanwo-Olu government looked the other way when chiefs declared curfew simultaneously in Mushin, Ijora Badia, Ojota, Muwo Odofin, Isolo, Ilasamaja, Ejigbo, Idimu, Ikotun, Igondo, Lawansin, and other parts of the state to celebrate Oro. Ruffians are all often available to violently enforce the curfew and business lockdown. They also forcefully extort tributes from shop owners and small businesses. Lagos has been made uncomfortable for residents, businesses, and investors as non-state actors continue imposing movement restrictions and curfews in Africa's largest city and sixth largest economy. So, in conclusion, they say that state governments should define the legal limits of traditional rulers. Henceforth, any monarch that proclaims a curfew should be sanctioned. Individuals, businesses, residents, and communities should protest this harassment and file lawsuits to protect their fundamental rights from oppressive non-state actors. In Nigeria, you find the lawsuits against them in which courts?
I don't understand. Like how? Where customary courts? Yeah, now customary courts. Now
you have answered the question. I don't have any comment.
Customary court.
But I always say this to the ordinary citizen, and if you don't know, you better hear this now. What should be is different from what is. I've said this 1,000 times over the years. Your rights in Nigeria are very, 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 very limited. So when you want to embark on anything, remember that your rights are the rights that you have are those that you can enforce within your own limited power. And that is couching it in a nice, polite manner. But remember the country that you live in. Do not lose sight of it. Remember the country. Until things change, always remember the country that you live in. I remember somebody was complaining he was arrested by the police because he had Rasta hair. There you go. That's what it is. Okay? So let's be very, very careful.
Let's move on to Kano, where we hear that a Kano man returns dead father's salary to government. That's on page 36 of Daily Trust.
Well, as we talk about the ills of society, there is still a slight, tiny light, pencil light, pencil head light in Kano. I wonder how many Nigerians truly would do this. And it says that the Kano State governor has commended the young man for returning the salary received through his dead father's account to the government quarters, to government coffers. So he saw the money and said, Papa is dead, and returned it.
That's quite noble, very noble.
What
is it? What do you want to ask me? What do you want to ask me?
It's too big for Mama.
What do you want to ask me?
It's too big for Mama. What would you have?
What would I have done? I think it's possible that I wouldn't even know. It's possible.
Papa's phone is with you now.
No, it's not. He's not with me.
Or when you go to the bank to close his account and take whatever is due to you, that you will see.
Exactly.
So you will put it in an envelope and return to civil servant.
Yeah.
Who will you return it to? How will you return it to government coffers?
I have not thought about it though.
I want you to blame me.
Let me.
Anyway, it was revealed in the statement by the government. It says Somalia's father died in October 2022, but the government continued to pay his salary until August 2023. That's a lot of money.
Wow.
However, the young man, noticing the situation, returned the salary to the state government to notify it that his father died 1 year ago, and he returned the sum of 328,115 to the government.
He's a good guy.
So the governor shook his hand and he went home.
He didn't give me a job.
No, it does what he has done. Does it show that a right requisite for working in the civil service?
She give me a job now. She use him. Give me a job. Like this one is one of the honest people that very few honest people that we have left. If we put this kind of person in the civil service, he will try and change the culture. Oh my
everything. Okay, so I mean, in conclusion for today, because today is a special day. Liberals will be coming here by the way at 9.
Yeah.
So to look at the legal, not the moral issues, mind you, just to look at the moral side. I think we've dealt with. If that is the way we want to move our country, so be it. There's a consequence for every action.
All right, Liberals will be here on Daily Digest at 9. Thank you, sir, for coming. Lagos, let's hand you back over to Kofi Bartels on the morning crossfire. Our job here is done this morning. Good morning to you.
This isn't a Game of Thrones. It's the game of information.
The German foreign minister went to Beijing to reaffirm that Europe would not let China invade Taiwan.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3